So, do we have anything in relate? Are there any objections to the desired outcomes and topics?
No. No.
Okay, so.
Do you mind sharing?
Say again?
Do you mind sharing your screen, like the notes?
Okay. So, are there any other questions about scheduling? Obviously, MB and Plasma, this would be the session to do that for, but we didn't really prepare much, but we can just go over the reviews. If there's any proposals, let us know, but we did pass the budget. I guess our proposals are for the new budget, the updated budget with the new main budget team. So when we review the current budget and updated budget proposals, and then you should be able to send out the voting form. Okay, Albina?
Okay, yeah.
Well, all right. Was there another voting form at all, or was it just the budget one?
No, the one for the budget.
Okay. All right. So anything else? Any other proposals? Vibes? Other issues anyone wants to go over? All right. So let's jump in. So the first topic is where we are now. So do you want to start, Albina, or?
Yeah, I can.
All right. So just like just give it an update over the last quarter. And so like how things have been going for you over the last quarter.
Since last quarter, we've been not having active members. Been on budget hard stops now and then. Just a few days ago, we have updated a new budget and payroll processes. And I think it's going to work. And if it works, it's going to be better because it will help us not be on budget and stuff, and we'll focus on the other priorities. Because with the new process, we already have the budget for the next month, which means there is nothing that is going to keep us on the hard stop, which is good. We also need to have active members. We focus on recruitment if it has to happen, because like the last time we had one-time budget, we removed like 4 to 5 members from the budget since they were not communicating. Teamwork has not been happening because removing 5 people at the same time is not good, sure, for the organization. So it's my prayer that when we recruit, or maybe when we get back the inactive members, we need to focus as a team and work towards the production and improve on the goals of the organization and objectives.
Cool. So for now, we just have Albina and Lillian in the budget. So we could also link we're going to link the budget to the budget section. We'll go over that. We want to link budget, current budget. I think it's actually just copy and paste, right? Link or copy and paste.
I copy and paste from the previous session, right?
Uh-huh. So we're also going to quickly link our reporting project doc. The reporting doc should have basically anything and everything needed for anyone in the membership and the Mars session for knowing the current status of the network and everything going on. So there's the reporting doc. From there, it seems like it would be helpful to link the most relevant reports. Our last financial report is extremely important. And this is from the current quarter. So we're currently in the 109° west quarter. We do financial reporting once a quarter at this point. And then also we have our Mercury report for our current global court team for the current moon month of 1/32. And that has us our goals for the next month and a half.
30-second stretch.
All right, let's take a 30-second stretch. Okay. So, do you want me to go over we can go over the budget report during the budget review down here. But what about the current goals and for the team? I don't know if you guys want to go over that or not. But how about I just give my update, and then if we want to go over the reports, we can, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Wahid, do you have any questions for Albina?
I'm reading your quota budget. Let me read it first, and then I'll get back to you. Just give me like 2 minutes.
Okay, we're also going to go over the budget in more detail during the reviewing of the current budget, okay?
Okay.
All right.
So
and we still need a link or copy and paste this month's and next month's budget.
Yes, Rahul.
Since you say the organization need active member, okay, your concern is you don't have active member meanwhile, right?
Yeah, I'm just the only one with Lillian.
Like FQN doesn't have active member.
Well, right now we have I think she's talking about workers. So as far as workers, it's just Albina and Lillian, right? And then me and Heather and James are at a different level helping out on other things. But as far as just FQN workers go, there's only Albina and Lillian.
Okay, what exactly happened to the rest?
Well, we just cut them all out of the budget because they weren't active. So we removed 5 people from the budget for inactivity or not following policies and participating based on their commitment. So
okay, there was a hard stop for budget. Basically, that's it. So everybody was not communicating.
Well, they should have been communicating and focusing on working on the budget, which was what their job was, right? So if people don't work on the budget during the hard stop, that's up to them, but they should be working and focusing on the budget because the budget's not done. In the context of the budget hard stop is over now because we just got it passed partly thanks to the work that I did to get it together and setting up a new process that hopefully will make it a little easier to do the budget, which is good. Anyway, shall I go into my update?
Okay.
All right. So I think one of the reasons why our overall, team and recruitment especially has been waning is that I have been, one of the only people who helps working on recruitment. Very few other people actually help on the recruitment. They do help a little bit with the onboarding and the worker engagement. We were having a lot of trouble getting people to actively engage with their training. One of the major changes that we have put in place in our policies is that we have now, well, actually, we're still in the process of doing it, but we're adding a whole new income distribution where a big, huge chunk of all the money we bring in is going to go into training. So basically, we're going to be able to set aside money in the budget as client income for the work of the new recruit. So when we recruit somebody, the goal is to get them to focus on client work. Before they're able to do client work, they're going to get paid and bring in income for the organization by doing their training. So their training is equal, as far as the budget is concerned, to the client work. So the idea is to get through the training as quickly as possible so that they can focus on the client work. Almost all client work brings in an hourly rate of income for the organization, whereas the training will be done based on output and deliverables. So there will be a set flat rate based on the worker's pay rate for how much income they bring into the organization for doing their worker involvement verification and their basic training. So the quicker they get it done, the more valuable it is for them to do it, and the longer they take, they basically are just, they're not going to get any additional money. So they take 3-4 times as long. That's great, but it doesn't actually bring in any more money. So there'll be an incentive for each worker to focus on, and for the whole team to make sure that the new recruits are focused on their training to help bring in funds for the organization. So I think that's going to help us. We haven't implemented that policy yet because we've been on budget hard stop, but hopefully we can help Lillian get focused on her training. As far as recruitment, I'm definitely available and willing to schedule more time on the recruitment. The primary reason I haven't been involved as much on recruitment as I'd want to be is because I am focused on dealing with the assets and the finances. Basically, before, like 3 or 4 months ago, we were, losing as much as $10,000 a day on some days, but easily $1,000 here, on certain days when, the Bitcoin and Ether is going down. And even when it wasn't going down, just trying to trade it and get it all stabilized was already going bad, and we were losing a lot of funds and assets. So over the last 3 to 4 months, I've been putting the vast majority of my time into starting the new branches and business organizations, businesses and companies related to Canopy and Horizon, which is overseeing all the assets. So it's basically an asset management company and organization. I tried to get lots and lots of help from over 30 people. Nobody was willing to put in the time. I mean, I've spent thousands and thousands of hours over the last year, so trying to put this all together, and it's finally coming together. And I think tomorrow will be the close of I would say a whole year and a half of work will come to a close tomorrow. It's still going to take another few years to really get the whole thing functional, but at this point, we're looking at, a very, very high probability after tomorrow that our assets will be, reasonably stabilized, which basically means instead of losing tens of thousands of dollars, we at least will have a stable, balanced amount of money with the ability to increase our funds if Bitcoin and Ether go up. So that's quite valuable and exciting. From there, there is, I believe, I'm working to a 1 to 3%. So let me write this down. So I'm working towards a 1 to 3% asset growth per month. So that could be, within, I don't know, 1 month, 1 to 2 months. So there's still some work to go for with that, but that's kind of the goal, is that not only do we stabilize, so right now we're looking at stabilizing, actually let's say 2 to 3 months. So 2 to 3 months, another quarter. So right now we're looking at stabilizing. So in the next 2 to 3 months, the goal is to get all of our assets organized to the point where we're growing them at 1 to 3% per month. And then that will be able to increase our budget. So once we get that going, we should be able to start increasing our budget and actually being able to increase our recruitment, because it's been really difficult recruiting because our hands are really tied because our budget is so tight. But hopefully with our new stability in our finances, that should change. And then once that happens, then we can really start evolving into all the other goals, which includes our basic needs, making sure we're getting all of our tokens set up and we're actively engaging and distributing the value in the network, including all of our equity and value packages to past workers. And then I don't think we're really looking at being able to pay back pay yet. I mean, right now we just need to still get the upfront pay set up for our current team, so we're just nowhere close to being able to really deal with back pay because we still can't even get upfront pay organized. But I do believe if everything works out, we should be able to start actively paying overtime. Overtime pay will include all workers who are working in the middle of the night, so that would be 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. So anyone working from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. will get overtime, and from midnight to 6 a.m. you get double overtime, like 2x. And then from there, obviously, there are other overtime if you're working more than, I believe it's 6 hours in a day and over 30 hours in a week. You would also be getting overtime. And then basically we would be transferring the overtime, which currently is considered back pay, into upfront pay. And we already have bonuses and output bonuses and deliverable bonuses, so that will continue. Yeah. So we're really close to getting everything organized, and then from there we'll be just expanding and getting all of our sessions organized, and then launching some of our campaigns. So in the next year things could get exciting, if everything goes well with the finances. Yeah. And there is a few new programs that are coming into our sponsorship program. One of them is working on medical research for using natural healing, primarily with different types of herbs, spices, all that kind of stuff, but doing scientific trials with different people. And then it's called Earth Med Research. So they're getting sponsored under our 501c3, so that's pretty exciting. We also had a possibility of doing some sponsorship for or doing more work with them. They do veterans healing, but it does use some different types of, hallucinogenic and, mushroom and things like that, so that actually makes it difficult to sponsor. So we're not doing that at this point in time, but that could have been as much as, like, I mean, they're huge. They raised millions of dollars, so that could have been another $50,000 there, $20,000 to $50,000. But we basically didn't come to an agreement because of the difficulty with the hallucinogenics. So, anyways, I think that's pretty much the update for everything that I've been working on. So I don't know if there's any questions there. I mean, there definitely are at least 30 or 40 other things that I have been working on. But I mean, I think that's a pretty good, those are all the most important.
15-second breath.
Do you want to do the breath?
Yes.
Okay.
We exhale together. Inhale, then exhale.
Cool, thank you, Albina. You've been doing really good on the time. You also did pretty good on doing the reminders, like 24 hours, 12 hours, 6 hours, 3 hours, 1 hour. So you did pretty good on all that. Again, you just want to, in the future, when we're doing the Mars session or above, so this will include Mars, Ceres, Jupiter, other planetary and galactic sessions, you also can invite all the past workers who are no longer in the budget. So you didn't invite that particular group.
Which group did you add then on the Skype?
We have a group called America's No Longer in Budget.
Oh, okay.
So this has everybody, including, all the people who used to work with us that no longer work. Okay. Anyways, ideally in the future we'll do public outreach and actually invite the public and the world. So, anyways, one step at a time. Okay. Any other questions about where we are now and the review of what's going on? Okay, it sounds like we're good on that. So, and we're going to cover the budget of where the budget is when we get to the budget section. So I'm opening up, we're going to the next topic, which is to the review the previous Mars session, and specifically if we had any goals for the year. So we did the introduction to the Mars session, introduction to Afghan Community Network, equity, team equity, network equity, involvement, questions, wrap up. So, I mean, I don't see anything specifically as far as goals. Goals for the year. Group teams with goals for the year. Let's see, is there anything in there? Did we do it?
That is where
introduction.
That is where independent group was launched on this Mars session. Recruitment.
Yeah, so we went over the structure. So the Mars session is the membership team. Recruitment, introduction. Organizing value, equity, value packages. Yeah, I mean, we went over just like recruitment and what, the value is and the hours and what the different options are, but we didn't really cover any specific goals. Yeah. So in general, the Mars session isn't our annual organization. So our annual organizing for the team is focused on the lunar calendar, which is the half years. So half years. So we have 2 half years per year. One is in, basically December. It's kind of like the beginning of the year, and then you have the mid in July. Okay, so that's when we kind of are supposed to be doing our annual goals, which are in alignment with our quarters and our Mercury sessions and all that. What we are supposed to be doing for the Mars session is there's supposed to be a Mars plan. The Mars plan, which is, there's the Mars plan, there's the Jupiter plan, Jupiter plan, there's the Saturn plan, the Mars plan, and then there's the Ceres plan. These are the primary plans that we create. There's some galactic plans and other things that we can do as well, but overall, these are the 4 primary plans. Whoops, the Mars plan is less than the Ceres plan. So we could do an Earth plan. The Earth plan is a little different. Venus plan, and then you would have the Mercury plan. So the Mercury plan was mainly just our team. Venus plan would be the executive plan. So this is kind of like the core team plan. The Venus plan would be the executive plan. The Earth plan would be, the bouncil plan. So this would be like the legal plan. And then the Mars plan is the membership plan. And the Ceres plan is the Legion plan. And these are basically public, right? Public and open. I mean, I don't know if public is the right word because they're all public. But this is more like interactive with the public. Right, so all of these plans would be interactive with the public. Right now, we're having trouble even doing like the Jupiter and the Saturn plan. I believe we had a Jupiter plan, but that we didn't get a Saturn plan. I can't really remember. But anyway, so the plans are a little different than goals. Our annual goals, which take place at the beginning of the half years, if we do everything correctly, would just be like, what are we trying to do as a team? The plans are more like, what is the purpose of the entire network and what is our overall plan? So in that context, there's really no difference for the existing plans. So we can just pull up the plans that exist already, and then there's also the prime plan. So let's go ahead and link those so that there's clarity on exactly what the plans are. So I'm going to the planning doc. Hopefully this has everything we are looking for. So here's the prime plan. So the prime plan basically is what I would define as what needs to happen in the correct order to get everything moving forward. It's similar to like what Albina was talking about in terms of having a functional organization, but it's a little different. So you can see here the purpose of the prime plan is the primary plan for the whole network and web and everything we're building, and it sets in motion the ability to implement what we want to do. But in the bigger picture, all of our other plans are almost all in system 9. So this is 9 systems that get us from where we are now of basically being dysfunctional to the point where we are able to implement all of our campaigns and actually transform the world, right? So it can all happen pretty quickly if we have the resources and the focus and the teamwork. But again, most of the other plans, like which we'll go into next, like the Jupiter plan and Saturn plan, are focused on system 9. So basically, in order to do anything that are our big goals, which are, uniting all peoples and social movements of the world for total societal transformation at every level, if we want to do that and actually get our planet in balance and harmony, to make sure that we are supporting the Earth and each other as, humanity and a society that actually, values not polluting and destroying our environment and basically destroying and attacking each other and raping and pillaging the world. It's out of control what's going on right now in the world. So what we need to do is we need to have clear plans. That's the system 1, system 0. System 1 is basic needs of wellness. We have to take care of ourselves and just address the core issues we need to deal with, making sure people are getting their basic life needs met, and making sure our policies are in alignment to helping people meet their needs, right? System 2, value tracking, distribution, budgeting, payroll, team equity distributions, value, all that needs to happen. If people are not paid, then the work's not going to get done. So it's like you don't do that, nothing else happens. System number 3 is all of our government compliance and taxes. If we don't pay our taxes, we don't actually do our government compliance, nothing else really matters. We'll get shut down. So that's actually coming up real soon. That's one of our top focuses for the next month. And we need to schedule that. So let's make sure, need to schedule a taxes session. So Albina, let's make that a priority, okay? Okay, Albina, you're on mute. All right. Let's keep going here. So outreach and recruitment, super essential. Then we deal with all of our assets and liabilities management, which we are getting better on. System 6 session support and scheduling, which would include the Mars session. So basically, before we focus on the Mars session, we need to have all these other 5 systems set up and functional. Right? It doesn't make sense for us to be focusing on the Mars session when we're losing $10,000 a month and we don't even have a team, we haven't done our recruitment outreach, and we haven't done our taxes. Does that make sense? You guys are still on mute.
Yeah.
Once we get our sessions back up and running, then we can go through all of our own internal compliance and rules and protocols. Wahoo, that's part of what you were focusing on in the past, is you were helping put together all of our policies and bring together so it's clear how people are start to function in our constitutions and how all that functions. That's system 7. I mean, basically, we could endlessly work on that, but it doesn't matter again until we get these other systems functional as well. As long as we have the minimal needed, which goes back to system 1, if we have the basic minimal policies in place, we're good to go. System 8 is the building all the rest of our systems. So these 9 systems are just the minimal foundation, but from there we need to make sure that we're dealing with all of our other burdens, issues, contentions, setting up our legal structures, launching the network, bringing in more clients, resiliency in our staff and staff systems, and multimedia websites, and all of our other projects. Then you get into your campaigns transformation. So I think that's pretty much it on the Prime plan. Let me go ahead and link the Jupiter plan. So the Jupiter plan is a 6-year plan. The Jupiter session happens every 6 years. I can't actually remember right now. I think we're about halfway through. So I think it's possible that the next Jupiter session is about 3 years away. But I really don't know exactly when it is. It's possible it might tell us. So the Jupiter plan is the last full plan we worked out. So but this is an active plan. I don't believe we finished this Saturn plan, but that was another one that we did work on. So this is the first Jupiter plan we ever did. It runs from 2017 to 2023. So if we don't do any other plans between now and 2023, we're fine, right? Because we have the Jupiter plan. Certainly it would be good to create updated plans, but this is better than nothing. So I'm not going to, obviously anyone can just read this. The primary things that all these were voted on and prioritized based on the voting. Our number 1 top goal was the sustainability movement in supporting, stability in balance and harmony with the planet. From there was the women's movement, peace movement, economic infrastructures, which we are focusing on. So our new economic infrastructures have been part of our primary focus because in our model, it's number 1 is economic infrastructures, because if you don't have the money set up and the resources, it's hard to do anything else. Number 2 is the decision-making models and infrastructures, and number 3 is the educational infrastructures. All right, but again, economic infrastructures are not the movements. Black Lives Matter, 2018 elections, and beyond. Let's see, video call ended because the connection was lost. Well, that's not good. Okay, so you're back. So anyways, oh yeah, here's the overall infrastructure foundation is new economic infrastructures, new political infrastructures, and new educational infrastructures. Cool. So I think we are good on all of this. Any other questions about where we're going as far as reviewing where we wanted to be from the last Mars session? And I mean, overall, you could say we're way behind. You could say we're further than we've ever been before, so we're doing really well. You know, it's hard to say, but, you know, bottom line, you know, we need to get our team grounded and functional. And that's our next topic.
Okay.
So let's see if Albina is going to come back. Albina, can you come back? We are starting next topic. That was yours. Boom, boom. All right, so let's see. We are at the top of the hour. Time to do a break. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a 5-minute break, and then see if Albina can come back. If Albina can come back, then we'll go through the minimums to the functioning organization. I think we could also relate that to minimums for a functional team, but I don't know if we really want to do both. If she's not here, we can skip straight to the quarterly and monthly budgets. Okay?
Okay.
Awesome. All right, so 5-minute break.
Okay.
All right, I'm back. Are you back, Bahu? No.
Okay.
Okay, so Albina says that she still has having some trouble. Anyway, so should we just go ahead and skip to the next section? Skip the functional organization and team and go to the quarterly budget, or what do you want to do first?
You need the team to function for you to have a budget, right?
The budget would be one component of a functional team and organization.
So if you basically don't have a team, how can you have a budget?
Well, you can have an organization and a team, right? And we do have a budget. There's a difference between having an organization and a team and actually having a functional organization and team. So having a budget is an essential component of having an organization and a team. So just having a budget doesn't necessarily mean that you're a functional organization. Anyways, just to give you a little more clarity, this was Albina's request, is to go over this. So I was going over it with Albina as a part of the team, the core team, to help us get more functional. So we can go over that with you if you want to. The review of the current quarterly and monthly budget is not really about passing a budget. It's about reviewing our current budget that you had questions about. So, again, the desired outcomes are different for the two different topics.
Yeah, let's skip to the budget.
Okay, so let's go ahead and skip to the budget, and we can go over it more when Albina gets back. Or if she's not back, we'll go through it without Albina, and then I can fill her in later. Okay?
Sure.
Okay, so the most important thing to understand about the budget is that there is two totally separate different budgets. Okay? So there's the quarterly budget, which we pasted here. This is the quarterly budget report. And then we've got the monthly budgets. Do you want to go through the quarterly budget first or the monthly budget?
Let's do the current budget.
The monthly budget?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so as you know, we removed like 5 people from the budget for inactivity. And basically people not following policies and making, not getting work done. So we also updated our budget process and payroll process to bring it all together to simplify it. So we have a new payroll budget and process, which I believe is functional with a single worker. So under our old process, you really needed a team to get the whole budget completed and get everyone paid and track all the time, everything, and verify everything. So the new model, there's very little verification, and it's all based on proposals and agreement, and making sure everything is correct based on people's contribution and time. So it should go much easier and quicker to do both the budget and the payroll because both would be approved and passed at the same time. So if you have a question about the payroll, we also approved the payroll at the same time we did the budget. So if you want to see the payroll, you can. In this context, we only have Albina as what we would call our only trained worker. So we currently have 1 trained worker at this point in time. And then Lillian is basically a new worker, and she's still going through her training. And until she goes through her training, she basically can't do client work. And it's just the basic training. In my calculations, if someone was actually, focused and a hard worker and was able to function at a global level of, fluent English and everything, they should be able to get through the basic training in less than a week. In reality, for whatever reason, it takes people weeks and months, and it just never ever happens. Like, we haven't had it successfully get anyone through the training yet. So I believe part of that is because of the hard stops and the other issues that get in the way of the training. And this whole new training process has only been in place for about maybe 2.5 months, and we had basically budget hard stop for most, if not all, of that time. So as you can see here, the budget for the main buddy team, Albina and Lillian, is $534 per month, and that does fit within our budget.
Okay, there's this question about the hours. Like, let's speak Albina. She's doing 234 80 hours, right? Is that per month?
Per month, yeah. So it's 80 hours per month, so that would be 20 hours per week.
No, but time budget is saying 12.5.
Yeah, so the time budget basically just means that, if Albina works 12.5 hours, she's supposed to check in. So the time budget means that if you go over the number of hours per week, you need to check in before continuing with the work, or you break the policy, and then you have to fill out the policy tracking. So, like, Lillian is a brand new worker, and what happens with brand new workers is that, okay, they get budgeted for $300, right? And then they don't do any work, right? And then in their time work report, they just put that they worked 30 hours a week, right? And so it's just like they're not doing anything, and they want to get paid their full amount. And it's like, no, actually, you have to actually have output. So the idea is that you have 5 hours per week is more than enough to move forward with your training and your basic worker involvement verification. If basically Lillian can't do any training and can't do any worker involvement in 5 hours, there's a problem, and she shouldn't be doing that, right? And so she needs to check in before she continues to work, because the last thing, what happens is that the workers don't do any of the work that they're assigned, and then they charge, full price for all of these hours, and they didn't do anything, and they didn't get any of their training done, right? So that's what that prevents. And if they do work over the 5 hours, we still pay them for it, but then they break the policy, and if they're working tons of hours and not actually accomplishing the goals that they're assigned to do, and they're breaking the policy over and over again, that can be grounds for removal. Does that make sense?
Here is what I don't get.
Yeah.
Okay, it is saying 80 hours. Time budget is 12 hours. 12 is equals times 4 per week. That would be like 40 something, 46, 50 hours, basically. Lillian is 20 hours, and it's taking 100 hours.
Lillian is 25 hours per week and 100 hours per month.
So 5 hours times 4 is equals 20 hours per month.
5 hours per week is the time budget. So she's budgeted for 5 hours per week in the time budget. So we're not expecting her. So we're budgeting $300 for Lillian, but we're not expecting her to work more than 5 hours unless she actually gets work done, and then she'll be budgeted. She'll do her first hours, and then, okay, you're actually getting work done? Okay, do another 5, do another 10. Do your full hours for the 25 hours for the week. But she needs to be doing work. Like, until someone's actually doing the work they're supposed to do, we don't need to budget them for $300. Like, it's like when we first hire someone, the probability that they're going to work full time, like, let's say they're supposed to work 30 hours a week, 120 hours a month, and they just get started, the vast majority of our new recruits just don't even do 2 or 3 hours a week. So we don't need to only have them budgeted for $300. We can also have them budgeted. This time budget would be, let's see what this is. 5 times 3 times 4. So Lillian's time budget is equal to $60 for the month. So she's budgeted for up to $300 a month, but her time budget is only $60 a month. So let's say we hired, 10 new recruits. The probability that all of them are going to work their full hours for the month is almost zero. More likely, less than half of them will even do much work at all, and it'll be all within the time budget. So we can, the lowest budget is typically always not a balanced budget. So the time budget is more of a realistic budget of what we're actually expecting people to do based on experience. Does that make sense?
So basically what you're saying, Lillian will get paid $60 instead of $300.
Yes.
$300.
Exactly. So it would be great if Lillian worked 25 hours a week. That'd be wonderful. But I have no interest in her working 25 hours a week if she doesn't do anything, right? If she has no output, she's not doing what she's assigned to do, and she just wants to spend a bunch of time doing random things and then get paid for it, it's not going to happen, right? So if she wants to work more than 5 hours, under our policy, she needs to be checking in and basically being like, look, I got all this work done. Can I do more than 5 hours? Oh, that's great. You did great work. Do another, 5 hours. Do another 10 hours even. You're doing great. Or she comes and checks in and she hasn't done anything. It's be like, okay, how about one more hour? If you can't do more work in one more hour, because you haven't done anything. Like 5 hours, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why haven't you done any work, right? So it really just depends on the circumstances. If there's a lot of global sessions that week, maybe they did 5 hours of global sessions, so we need to give them another 5 hours to do additional training. But the point is that it's just a matter of making sure there's communication. Again, if somebody doesn't communicate and they just work over their 5 hours, we still pay them up to the $300. They would just need to go on the policy tracking because they broke the policy. So breaking a policy is not a big deal, but the point is that we want to track it. So if people are not following the policies, we want to know that, because the policies are there to increase communication, to make sure that we're doing production and output and focusing on the work.
So this time you say the budget is balanced, meaning Lillian and Albina have been able to the income is 534 so far.
So according to our budget, we have between $600 and $650 a month. So that is the money that we get from that's the money that we get from the UMCUS. So that does bring up a point here. We'd still need to do the UMCUS proposal. So this is policy tracking. So Albina, looks like you're back. We need to track the policy on the UMCUS client proposal. We forgot to do that. And so that would be a problem, and we need to prioritize that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you could copy and paste the approved proposal from last month and see what we can work out for this month, that would be good, because that's still required under our new budget process, because we still need the money. What?
Okay, I'm going to copy from previous notes.
So I think this is applicable. Actually, this is only applicable for next month's budget. So we have not completed next month's budget process yet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So the deadline is quarter moon for finalizing CUS proposal. All right. So we currently have $600 to $650 from CUS. So that's the money we have. In that context, we are within the budget, so it's a balanced budget. Does that make sense, Wahoo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the second part of it, I don't get. Okay, after explaining the albino, we come down. Is this part like Lucy back pay?
Okay, so Lucy was removed from the budget and added to a separate branch. She might start her own business. I don't know. She's figuring out her own things, but basically, it became clear over the last few weeks that she was just not happy or interested in working on the goals of the network, which is perfectly fine. But it's like, if she's not interested in doing the work, then she shouldn't even be here, So it's like, you can do your own. She just needs to focus on the deliverables and output. So we'll see if she wants to keep working on deliverables and output. But she's been working with us for almost 2 years, like a year to 2 years, a year and a half. And we almost removed. Well, we actually did remove her from the budget before, and we were going to give her a severance, but she came back and helped us with our training processes. Unfortunately, she didn't like it. She just was never interested in actually focusing on the training, and for whatever reason, she kept complaining about the training and wanting to get to the client work and not wanting to do the trainings anymore. I don't know exactly what it was, but we kept asking, Lucy, the trainings is extremely important. You need to do the trainings before you can move on. But it just never happened. So I don't know why it didn't work out, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out. So the proposal is $100 per month for 3 months. So it's a $300 back pay severance. I believe Lucy's back pay is like $5,000 to $10,000. I mean, she has many thousands of dollars of back pay. Again, back pays are IOUs. They are at risk, 100% at risk, equity ownership in the organization, in the worker cooperative.
The back pay is for the last 2 years.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, if you're budgeted for $300, if you're budgeted for $300 for 100 hours, if you work 120 hours that month, you would accumulate 20 hours of back pay.
Okay. So the point is, why does she have her own whatever group for the back pay?
No, the back pay has nothing to do with her group. It just has to do with the idea of helping her have 3 months, a little bit of extra money over the course of 3 months to get another job and get herself figured out.
Okay. The next thing is, why only her? There's Miguel also who has a back pay. Why her only?
The only difference between Lucy and every other worker is that every other worker has basically, left unto their own, and then also we're not willing to work for less. Lucy in the past has had a $0 budget, lowest, and seems to be willing to work for very small amounts. I mean, right now she's doing like $300, something like that. So as long as someone's willing to cut their budget, they can stay in the budget. In this context, and the same thing with you, if people are not willing to follow the policies and actually focus on the work to make sure our team is functional, then they can be removed from the budget based on our policies, in the context that they can be put in their own separate branch of the network and create their own business where they can be given deliverables and output, but they wouldn't be internal to the team anymore. So they can be a separate outsourced budget for them if they want to do deliverables and output. That's also available to you as well. The membership in the Mars session is different. Everybody is invited to the membership in Mars session who has equity and value in the organization. So both you and Lucy and everybody else who's worked with us as a worker-owned cooperative. In the worker organization, there's equity and value, and so everybody is basically an owner. And this is the owners session. So it's the membership owners, shareholders. This is the Mars session is where we invite everybody to make decisions. So Lucy still has a role at the Mars level, but she would no longer be involved in the core team.
Why is that?
Well, again, we had already branched her off, and we were doing sessions with her, contentious sessions with Lucy for over 3 or 4 months, and they just never resolved, and it just got worse, especially with the hard stops, and she was very frustrated, and was not, like, at the last meeting. I don't know, Albina, if you want to go through the last meeting. Bottom line, the last meeting, in my perspective, instead of focusing on the budget hard stop and moving forward and getting the work done, Lucy just basically got in a huge argument with me and everyone else in regards to wanting to get off hard stop and be like, the hard stop needs to end right now and we can't do any more, as opposed to just focusing on what needs to get done for the hard stop to be completed. She just wanted to get, I guess maybe getting paid, or I don't know what it was, but she just wanted the hard stop to be over and to not worry about the work. So she basically wanted the hard stop to be over without the work, and everything broke down, and we focused on the contentious issues and all the issues that she had. We went over the issues in detail. We can link that particular session if you want to read the notes, but basically it outlines in detail all of the different viewpoints of Lucy and how they're extremely different from the goals of the network.
Okay, so Bernard, FQN has William and Albina.
Yes, those are the current workers. And again, the primary policy in relationship to being involved in the network is that if people's values and goals are so different from the goals of the organization and at least certain branches in the network, they can create their own branch, right? So there's no need to force people to work together that have different values and different goals, right? So if anyone wants to create a different value system or have different goals, they can do that in another branch of the network. And the same would be true with you. I mean, you're welcome to build whatever branch of the network you want to. All right, are any questions with, we're going to do a 30-second stretch. And what does Albina say here? Albina says, still having trouble with the phone. Okay. All right, so let's do our stretch, 30-second stretch. Okay. Also, it's good to know under our policy, if anybody comes into the network with an already existing conflict or contention, it automatically creates a new branch of the network. So basically what that means is that if there's external conflicts that are going on either in the world or in another organization or between other people involved in other organizations, and then they come into the FCON community network, and they bring their problems and contention issues from other organizations, under our policies that automatically initiates a separate branch of the network. So we address that conflict and that issue from the very beginning, and to try to prevent it from taking over within our existing teams and organizations. Yeah.
So can I ask, what is the plan here now?
What is the what?
FQN have two active workers?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to be focusing on recruitment more. and bring in more people, it shouldn't be hard to get another 5 or 10 people who are interested in working. The only question is, what is our budget? So right now, if we have a $650 budget, I mean, you can see here that under our $650 budget, it's, you know, it's basically taken up by the lowest, right? So if we think about the time budget, under our time budget, we probably could slip in another, 1 or 2 main buddies. So if you see for the next month, oh no, this doesn't have the next month's proposed budget. Next month's new proposed budget. So there should be another main buddy team here. Main buddy team Percy and Natalie. Lucy, you did not copy correct. So we already have a main buddy team that is in stage 4. So stage 3 is main buddy teams and getting everyone's buddy teams set up and budget proposals proposed into the budget. Stage 4 is that you have your budget proposal proposed into the budget and you're waiting for the budget approval. So that's what we have for main buddy team Percy and Natalie. Main buddy team rank budget, to vote. Let's see, I think it might be here.
Maybe the process of making the buddy team, that is where everything goes south. Maybe after PPO approve that person to the budget.
Here we go, Natalie and Pressy. So it is, the time budget looks like 137, maybe. And then the lowest is 475. So that is the two main buddy teams. I mean, making budgets is not easy. So there's no easy way to do a budget, but overall, the new budget process we have should simplify everything, and we can get to the core criteria of what's required in a budget. But basically, we need to know how much we're paying people so that we can do payroll properly. So it's just it's a necessary burden, but to run a functional organization, there has to be a budget. The budget can certainly be done quarterly, and in our quarterly budgeting process, we are organizing all of the budgeting per quarter so that if everything stays pretty much the same, we only really have to do budgeting once a quarter, and then every month we're basically just stamping the same budget. In this particular quarter, things are changing a lot. We fired 5 people. We're getting new main buddy team. We're changing things around. So this budget looks quite different than the original quarterly budget, but it's much balanced, more balanced. Our original quarterly budget was not even balanced at all. So my focus is not on hiring a bunch of people. My focus is actually on the finances and the taxes and getting that focus. So if we can get the finances organized and stabilized, we'll have more money to hire people, right? Because when we only have $600 a month, it's not enough money to really hire anybody.
So basically, if you add Natalie and Pierce, the budget is unbalanced.
It'll be $71 in the red, according to this. Oh wait, that's the time, but this is, I think that's time budget.
Or the imbalanced budget, right?
Sorry, say again?
Which are we following, the balanced budget, which is 600 and something, or the imbalanced budget?
Hey, Albina.
Which is actually
Albina, we have a problem with our budget, and that is it is not organized because I don't know. I mean, it seems like we need a budget doc to copy and paste the budgets for the core team, so that we have all the budgets. So need to create a core team budget doc with the written budgets. Can we do that? Because these are not the correct budgets that we need right now.
Okay, let me create that.
Or can you link the notes from our last sessions? Like, we need to...
Yes, the notes, I linked the notes.
I don't see the notes.
At the top, previous notes on Saturday 24th.
Okay, let's check. I'll look here. All right, so this is our one-time main session for the budget. Okay, so this looks like it's correct. So this is the new budget proposal. So I don't know what you're doing, Albina, but we need to focus on responsibility organizing.
Yes, you said we need the responsibility organizing for the new budget process.
Yeah, because you're still not doing it correctly, and it's creating a lot of confusion, and like there's no spreadsheets. Like in the voting form, it's all spreadsheets. There's none of that. Okay?
Yeah, we need to do responsibility organizing and set up for the new process. We haven't done that yet.
Yeah, we need to schedule that. Maybe we have it scheduled. I don't know. All right, so for the new updated budget proposal for this month, we're adding in Natalie and Pressy. And so basically, the lowest budget will be in the red by $400. The time budget is balanced. Does that make sense? Wahoo?
Yeah. With the $100 from Lucy.
No, the $100 for Lucy doesn't come until next month. So for next month, we would have two main buddy teams. There'd be Albina and Lillian, Natalie and Pressy, and then the Lucy back pay is $100. So if you add all of that up, the lowest approved budget would be in the red by $500, and the expected time budget would be balanced. So again, if everybody worked all the hours that are budgeted, we would be in the red by $500. That never happens. Based on our expected time budget, our expectation is that we wouldn't spend any more money than we have, which would be a balanced budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And just to make sure you understand the way that the time budget works, let me see if we have... Let me link on the voting form again. Can you see my screen? So the way the time budget works is you have Albina, Lillian, Natalie, and Pressy. So these would be the... Oh, it's not here.
It is not showing the document.
You can't see the screen. Okay, no worries. Anyways, I'll just write it down here. So so the time budget would basically be main buddy team Albina and Lillian is $60 plus let's see, 12.5 times 2.93. Again, we haven't gone over all of this yet, so it's not completed, but anyway, it's about $150. And so that would be $210 for main buddy team Natalie and Pressy. The lowest would be $150. And then you have Lucy, back pay is equal to 100. So your total time, and then what you do is you do a buffer, right? So buffer for all workers. Usually we do, like $200, $250 depending on how many workers there are. So the total is equal to $200, $400, $500, $660. All right, so it's about $10 over, but overall it's fine. We can reduce the buffer by $10. So you could say 190. And this would be, and that would be in budget. So the idea is that you have the time budget for Albina, Lillian, Natalie, and Pressy, $210 to $150 for each main buddy team. and then you have an additional $200 for anybody who works additional hours. So you have this buffer where you're still able to pay anybody up to their lowest level or whatever they need, they're budgeted, but the expectation that all 4 workers would do that would be really low. It would probably only be, you know, 1 or 2 that would do that, and so the buffer covers that, and so you have a balanced budget in the time budget, even though your lowest budget is in the red. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But even if we were in the red by $500, it's not a big deal. I mean, being in the red for 1 month for $500 is perfectly fine. I mean, we were in the red by over $10,000 a month for like 3 months way back in January 2018, right? So, you know, being in the red $500 is not a big deal. But the probability that we're even going to spend that money is very, very low.
So you have a client which client work is not functioning, right?
Our clients are all internal at this point. All of our client work is internal.
What do you mean by that?
Everything's structured in the network. Well, here, it'd be easier to actually go through the budget for the quarterly budget. Let me just give you the basic structure for the quarterly budget. So, you know, almost all of our money. So in the past, like the money has all been in Rico slash, I guess it's Rico, right? So Rico is, and actually it's slash Jurison, right? Jurison. So this is the primary budget. And so Rico gives, you know, pretty much all of the assets and finances to Canopy to oversee the asset management, right? So Jurison, so Rico slash Jurison. So Jurison is basically the trust. The trust gives, I think it's 3 to 4% per month for our monthly budget. Okay. So if we have, I believe our last time we went through our assets, it was $60,000 times, you know, 4% gives us our budget, right? So $60,000 times 4% is $2,500 a month. So that's our budget, is $2,500 a month. Okay, so then all the rest of the assets are managed by Canopy. Canopy takes a fee to oversee that. So then Canopy is now another business that has a budget that can pay workers to oversee the assets and do the asset management, right? So currently our current clients are obviously Rico, because Rico has lots of money. And then you have Canopy. And then there's also, well, it's not really a client. No, yeah, it's Canopy. Yeah. So these are our 2 primary clients. And there are other budgets that I'm working with that are separate and in different branches of the network, primarily Horizon. So one branch of Canopy is Horizon, which is a new business that's overseeing asset management as well. So all the assets are managed between Canopy and Horizon. And Canopy currently oversees about 60,000, but it outsources possibly as much as half of that to Horizon, and Horizon also brings funds into Canopy. Anyways, to go through all the asset management is a whole separate question. We don't need to worry about that, but basically we could just say Canopy slash Horizon, right? So these are our internal clients. This is where all of the money comes from right now. But there are additional clients, including sponsorship, which includes Community Life Network Incorporated, Innovate United LLC, and WCTC. So these are our corporations that are basically our 501c3 nonprofits, right? So these are our clients. So we have the sponsorship, and this basically covers all the taxes and finances, right? And then Rico and Canopy oversee all the asset management, right? So again, remember, there's probably like, I don't know, between 6 to 12 different projects and organizations and businesses within the network that we do business for. We have a payroll. Last year, our payroll was almost 40 people. The year before that, it was 70 people, right? And again, the payrolls that we do, it's not our money. Does that make sense? It's other people's money. Yeah, okay. And again, this is just, this $60,000 is only the assets that we directly oversee, right? So all of the money that pays the FQN workers comes from this $60,000, including the money for myself, right? So this budget covers Jay, James, Heather, Albina, Lucy and her back pay, Natalie, Lillian, right, etc., etc., etc. Okay. So this is the workers' organization plus the owners, right, which is myself, James, and Heather. And this is all the $2,500, right? It's not a lot of money. And we can quickly take a quick look at what the overall quarterly budget looks like, because that's very important. So if you come into our quarterly budget and accounting report, what we would look at is the overall quarterly budget. So the overall quarterly budget is the primary budget for the whole organization and network, to run everything, right? And remember, like, if you consider and it's $2,500 for the first month, $2,400, $2,300. So it goes down each month unless we have income. So if we don't have income, then it's always going to go down. From there, if there's $60,000 in our budget, the whole network is overseeing about $500,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's about $500,000 that I personally oversee, as far as me being the treasurer of all these other organizations and other people's money. But it's not my money. It's not our money. Of the $500,000, $60,000 is the Rico Jurison money, and this money is what we would say is it's not like my money either. It's basically, it's money that I have influence over and can basically, use it in a way that can benefit the goals of the network, as opposed to the goals of an organization, right? So we can get a small percentage of this each month to stabilize the network, right? And the fact that we have that and that we are within budget means that we're totally stable right now. I mean, if you go back a year from now, we weren't stable. We were spending way more money than we were bringing in. So right now, everything's stable. I mean, we are much, much better shape than we were a year ago. And our goal is actually to reverse everything, to be increasing our budgets, to be bringing in more money, and that would be happening through Canopy and Horizon, or bringing in new clients. We almost brought in a new client, but there's at least 3 or 4 possible scenarios of where we can bring in more money as well as more clients. So I'm not too worried about that. But anyways, it's important to understand that we basically have this very small $60,000 budget over a year. It's like a year to 2 year budget. And we're spending $2,500 a month that oversees the entire network of $500,000. Right? So the $60,000 budget is like an administrative budget. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if we quickly look at the quarterly budget, basically what you're looking at is you have the FQN Global Workers monthly budget. This is the $650 to $550, right? So we're about $600 to $650. I don't know if we actually spent all of it, so I think we're okay overall. Then you have the benefits.
What is that? Benefits.
Benefits include benefits are only available for back pay. If you don't have back pay, you basically don't get benefits. But once you have back pay, you get paid leave. You get maternity leave. Actually, if you don't have back pay, you still get maternity leave and paternity leave. You get, if you have back pay, you get sick leave, paid leave. You can basically just not work for any reason you want and just take leave and you get paid for it, right? So anyone who has back pay can take sick leave or any leave, vacation, whatever, and get paid for it up to 2 weeks a year. And also there's the end of the half year bonuses. So twice a year you get a bonus at the end of the half year, which includes the end of year holiday bonuses, and that is 25% of your pay. So what happens under our benefit program, if in the last month of the year for the holidays, you want to spend that with your family, you can take off 2 weeks and get full pay, right? So it would be, or you can work, you can work, I believe, oh no, you can take off the entire month and get half of your pay, or you can work 2 weeks and then take off 2 weeks and get full pay. I think that's it. Yeah. So if you take off the entire month of the last month of the year, you can still get half of your pay and not have to work at all. If you work for 2 weeks, I believe you get 100% of the pay for the month, and you get 2 weeks off for the holidays. And that happens twice a year for the end of the half year.
Okay, we have at the bottom annual business expenses.
So then you've got Rico Owner's monthly budget. So this is the money that pays me and James and our annual benefits, which are mainly health expenses since it's difficult. And then the annual business expenses, this is actually a little bit low. It's probably a little bit higher. This is probably in the red, but most of that budget's being covered by the trusts. All the new trust expenses are being covered by the New Horizon budget, which is a separate budget at this point as part of PINDA. So it's a separate business. So in the context of this money, this covers all of our taxes, it covers all of our internet, it covers all of our communications, and it covers all of our business expenses, right? I mean, everything from post office services, mail services, computers, security. We're also adding, that also includes all the taxes. We're also adding different security services for our cyber, because we have all of our Bitcoin and cyber currencies security, as well as doing, what's the other one? Yeah, mainly just like mail and coordinating all of the internet, websites, all of it, servers. That make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the business budget is the biggest part of the budget minus paying myself. So paying myself is the biggest expense, right? And I mean, me getting paid like, less than $1,000 a month is like I'm barely making any money. It's not good. So ideally we would be able to increase all of these budgets. But once we start doing work, we can increase this quite a bit. We do need to add in our, what's it called? Yeah, I think we can add that in. So let's make that a note here. So note, add in the bonus budgets to quarterly budget. I think right now they're in, it might make sense to have them here. I think they're in the annual benefits budget is where they are right now. I think that does actually cover bonuses. Or it's in the business expenses. It's one of those. But it might be helpful to actually pull it up and actually put it into the monthly budget. Cool. And you can see here that we are in the red. So actually, we didn't actually do this. Where is it? Quarterly overall. So this is the monthly budget, and then this is the monthly unbalanced budget. So what happens here is that under our endowment for the trust, we have $2,373 the first month, the second month $2,278, the third month $2,187. And then this has the accumulative spent if we are within budget. But what happens is that we actually are budgeting more, right, than we are actually supposed to spend. So for the first month, we're basically over budget by $500. So the second month, our total actually goes down by almost 20 bucks, right? So then the second month, if we're over budget again, the accumulative spent, you can see here, is almost we spending more than $1,000 more than we should have spent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So every month where you spend more money, that reduces the money we have left for the next month. So within a 3-month period, it goes from 2,187 down to 2,147. So it's about $40 cut. But if you multiply that times a half a year or a year, I mean, you're looking at your budget going down by $1,000, $2,000 very quickly. So that's basically, so the goal is always to be within budget, but if you go over budget, it's not like we go out of business or anything. It's just like we're pushing the can down the road to try to get a balanced budget later. But our goal is actually to be increasing our budget, right? So the goal is actually increasing our budget and increasing the amount of assets and finances that we have. The overall goal, I believe it's here, is $300,000. So in order to have a functional budget, to really be paying all of the workers and having a fully, like within the United States and across the world, which would include having all the octants filled, full teams all across the world functioning 24 hours a day, most of the month. We're going to have a day off once a month or one time to 4 times a month, right? We need 300,000 in the bank, right? So currently we only have 60,000 in the bank, right? And we are trying to increase that by a lot.
So according to the document, quarterly budget accounting report, there's this overall budget section.
Yes, the overall budget section.
Business annual expenses budget.
Mm-hmm.
It is $6,000, right?
Per year?
You say annually, but you are giving it in monthly, so it is quite confusing.
All of this is an annual budget. All of it's annual. So this is how much we're expected to spend each month, but all of these budgets are all annual. So when we budget our HR budget for $650 a month, we're multiplying that to 12. So we're looking at a $7,000 to $10,000 HR budget for the team, right? So of the $60,000, boom, 10,000 of it is just boom, that's going to the team. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
then you take $900 for me and James. That's $10,000 there. So then you have another $10,000 slated for me, right? So and James, and so that's $20,000. So of the $60,000, 20,000 of it is just cut just in the first year, right? Then for the business annual expenses, you know, realistically, it's more like 750. But if you multiply that to the 12, you're looking at another 10,000, right? So between the business expenses, me, and the global workers, you're looking at half of our entire budget gone in 1 year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but when you say annually, I'm actually thinking in 12, in actually a whole year, not monthly, but the figure are in monthly. That is why it is.
Yeah. So for example, our annual benefits, right? Our annual benefits are an annual benefit program, and that's all budgeted annually. But you take the total annual costs, and it comes out to $150 a month, right? So you need to put aside about $150 a month to do the annual cost. So if we look at the business annual expenses budget, which should be linked here, annual business expenses. So annual business expenses is this, right? So these are the annual business expenses. So you have your franchise tax. This is $800 a year. Does that make sense? The corporation tax is an additional $800 when we get the Zero Corp set up. Our nonprofit mutual benefit company eventually is going to cost $800 a year. Our websites, we're spending at least $500 a year on our websites. We're spending a bunch of money on insurance, about $350 a year. It could go up significantly. Bank fees and other fees, we're at least spending $350 on our bank fees. We have multiple bank accounts that have monthly fees. We have a PO box that has an annual fee. We have our business address in Australia that costs $300 a year. Computer hardware, we're spending about $1,000 on all of our hardware costs and servers. Biannual escrow, so there's additional costs that come every 2 years, right? So basically, if you add all of this up, it comes up to about $650. And this isn't great, but these are our annual costs. From there, we also have weekly costs of basically fees or food, supplies. We don't have any food costs, but we just note that in there. Supplies, gas, travel, websites, utilities, phone. So these are all of our weekly costs, right, that come up week to week. And so we just kind of average those out annually. And so those are other annual costs. And then these are our monthly business expenses, which includes phones, car insurance, our legal shield, our legal lawyers, online questions. I don't know what that is. Oh, no, this is the legal shield. Yeah, so these are our legal online and legal phone. And then these are our voice, our online servers. Outsource these. This is recruitment. Annual escrow. This is annual cost. So if you take our annual costs right here, so if you add all of this up for our annual costs, this entire annual budget is put into our monthly escrow at $371. So we're spending $371 to set aside every month for our annual expenses, whereas if you take all of our monthly expenses, this is the total cost. So the total comes up to about $550 to $600 a month per month to cover. And then you take the weekly escrow and the weekly funds, the total is about $700, right? So it's somewhere between $584 to $724 that we're spending per month on the business.
The business then will come annually, which is actually less than, and you have not included the payment for workers. So
this doesn't include anything for workers. Yeah, this is just running the business without any workers.
Okay.
Yeah.
No payroll.
No payroll. So the payroll is a totally separate budget. So if we go back to the overall quarterly budget, the payroll is separate. So the FQN Global Workers monthly budget is the HR budget. So the HR budget consists of the workers and the owners. The owner's budget is me, James. The workers budget is Albina, Lillian, Pressy, Natalie, Lucy, right? So the goal is to increase all of the budgets, but primarily we need to increase the HR budget. And then we're also looking at, other budgets that I'm actually working on this new business right now. I'm working on Horizon, right? And so that is ideally going to bring more money into Canopy and more money into the network. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, the RICO budget's not going to change. The RICO budget, and specifically the Jurasend budget in relationship to the FQN and the global workers, it's never going to change, right? This is the money that we have. This is the budget we have to work with. And we need to figure out how to get it to grow and expand and get the money out of RICO and into the organization, right? So the goal eventually is that all the money comes into the worker organization, right? So let me make sure that's clear in the budget. So the goal for the budgets is that the FQN Workers Organization, again, this is a worker-owned cooperative, has sufficient income to cover all its own costs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So right now, the actual organization, the FQN Workers Organization, doesn't bring in enough money to cover its own costs. So Rico and myself have to end up covering the costs of the organization. And that's basically the UMCUS, right? That's the umbrella client. So Rico is the client. So we're spending money trying to build this global organization for the benefit of the world, right? And so we're the client, and the client is paying the workers' organization to do the work. But as long as the work's not getting done, you're never going to have a balanced budget. So by getting the work done, you're bringing in more money, and then the workers' organization will eventually be self-sufficient. Once it's self-sufficient, it'll have its own budget. It'll have its own treasurer. It'll have its own, HR and benefits, etc., etc., etc. So, but it'll also have its own costs, business costs, websites, insurance, whatever bank fees, right? Because it'll have its own bank accounts, everything, right? So once FQN Workers Organization becomes its own self-sufficient organization, it will have to cover all of its own internal costs. And all of that needs to be part of the income, right? So right now, all of the money is in a business that I started, which is RICO, right? That's the Resident Innovation Cyber Organization. So the RICO is where all the money is, right? And right now, I'm focusing on Canopy and Horizon, which is getting paid by RICO to oversee all the assets and finances. And that is ideally going to create its own budget, but that'll be a separate budget. They're separate businesses, totally separate. So sponsorship, again, is totally separate from RICO and Canopy Horizon, but it also has its own budget and oversees all the taxes and finances and everything as well. So if you put that all together, the ideal end product is that you end up with the FQN Workers Organization that is fully self-sufficient, that's getting paid by RICO, by Canopy, by the sponsorship program to do all of the work, and then be able to set aside enough money to run all of its own costs and be fully self-sufficient. And that's the next step here, is to kind of go through what it's going to take to create an organization that is fully functional.
So we are back to Albina question.
Well, Albina's not here. I don't think she's going to come back. So I think we're ready to check out and move on. If you want to go over this, it'll take 10 minutes. I could try to do a shortened version, 5 or 10 minutes. But otherwise, I need to get going myself.
It is okay.
Because I haven't been feeling so good. Do you want to go over this the functionality real quick, or?
Yeah, you can go through it.
So let's go ahead and skip the team stuff. I mean, this team stuff is simple. It's like communications, basic you know, scheduling, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, having a functional team is like, you know, it's just scheduling, communications, making sure the work gets done, management, right? Blah, blah, blah. To have a functional organization is very different, right? So a functional organization requires, for the FQN community workers cooperative, right? So basically it's a cooperative. We'll call it an organization. So it's a worker-owned cooperative. You yourself have, you know, for the time that you were working with us, you know, probably accumulated about 12% ownership for last half year. So you had about somewhere between a 10 to 12% ownership. Some of that was, you know, before you, it would be part of like a donation, you know, that you can make. But overall, it's probably somewhere around that 10 to 12%. But that's last half year. So this half year would be less since this is the only session that you have attended. But basically, we need an ownership structure. You know, clarity, who owns what percentage. This also can be part of like tokens, distribution. All right. So from there, you need a legal structure. The legal structure typically is the Mars membership. Well, owners / membership / shareholders. So that would be at the Mars session. So hopefully next year at the Mars session, we'll bring everyone together. It'll help a lot if we tell everybody exactly how much they own. So there's a significant amount of work here. This is a major responsibility to calculate and document total or estimated ownership of the organization by each member, owner, shareholder. Okay? So when you calculate that, you end up with being able to invite people to the Mars session, not just as an observer, but as like you own this percentage of the total, right? This is your ownership. This is your power in that ownership, and we want you to be involved. Under the membership model, everyone gets equal vote, but there's a separation in terms of how much value you have in the decisions that are made. From there, we appoint a board of directors. So the board of directors is the primary legal decision-making body, which is the Earth session. So currently have, I don't know, I think it's like a 4 to 5 person board. All right, so from there, and we can change the board as necessary. If you wanted to be on the board, I don't care. We can appoint you on the board. We have that power. We can do it right now, right? So if you want to be on the board, let me know. We can make a proposal and add you. It doesn't matter. So then the board of directors needs to appoint an executives, and the executive committee. The executive committee is currently basically me, right? So I can make Jay has power to make executive decisions. So under a power in the structure, I'm able to make executive decisions and move everything forward in the absence of a functional membership and board, right? So that's where we are right now, and this is Venus sessions. So the Venus session, I think, is coming up again soon. Basically, if anyone wants to be an executive, they can just step up into the executive roles. Albina is the closest we have to executive, but she isn't really an executive. She's really only a worker. And then you have the core team, and the core team are the workers and the management, right? But actually, no, it's the management team. So the management team is the Mercury session. Oh no, seasonal session. And then you have the workers, the core team, which is the Mercury session. So this is our legal structure, and then this is our management and work structure. Okay.
Okay.
So work sessions and main sessions happen basically, full new quarter moon. So steering team and what is called support team and main sessions, and then you have work sessions throughout. Okay, so that's basically the primary functionality of your organization. From there, obviously, you need a budget. Under your board structures, you're going to need a executive treasurer and secretary. You also typically have a chairperson of the board, or president. You can also appoint a president, and then you also can have a CEO. The CEO is actually, legally structured as a senior manager position, and becomes the CEO/president during their shifts. Because we're a global organization, the actual president and CEO, it goes between the senior managers as it goes across the world, so that we constantly have the most powerful person in the network is working 24 hours a day. So besides the budget, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, you need plans. You need to be organized, plans and organization. But that's mainly done by executives. Policies, we have a lot of policies already, pretty set up pretty well. So, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Can you think of anything else that is necessary?
Order, structure, order, basically order.
I mean, you could say that you need client relations and investor relations. Because you need to be able to bring in money. So that's certainly a management component. So most of this is all management coordination. So you need to coordinate your workers as well. So there's worker coordination. Oh, you have to do recruitment. If you don't do recruitment, your organization is not going to function. Yeah, I think that's most of it. You got to do your payroll and all that kind of stuff, but that's, getting into more details. Just say budget and payroll. So I have detailed lists as well. So we do have detailed lists for, team and organization setup. But when we look at team and organization setup, our goal is not to just have the minimum. Typically in all of our checklists for team and organization setup, it's everything. So it's much more than the minimal. It's like basically, here is everything we need to do to go above and beyond. But that's not really applicable to the minimal. The minimal is a lot less than what you really want. All right, so as we work towards the minimum, remember, we don't need any of this because we already have this, 10 times over. I mean, I'm actively organizing and running 10 organizations, right? We have 8 sets of, we have 10. We have 10 sets at least of taxes that we file every year. So the whole point of setting up the African Community Workers Organization is not really necessary to function as a business because we have so many other businesses already. But the idea is that we want there to be engagement with the workers to make sure that they understand that they are owners and that they're engaged in a model of work where they actually are building value and building wealth. If we're successful. So if we're successful, everybody will get, a lot of money, right? I mean, everyone will do very well. And that's what I'm working towards. So the other thing that I missed here is identity. Identity. So what is the purpose? The purpose, the function, the name, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So that's really important. The identity. Right now I call it the FQN Community Workers Organization, but we can call it whatever we want to. And the board has the final determination on the name. So this would also include your guiding documents. So you're gonna have bylaws. You're gonna have maybe a constitution like you've been talking about. You're gonna have some type of your policy documentations, right? I guess we could just put this down here, the policies, so the guiding documents. And again, we do have drafts and we do have versions of all of that already. So our guiding documents, our policies, our bylaws, constitution, standing rules, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So, but the identity is really, really important, right? So in order to get buy-in to an organization, the identity needs to reflect the needs and interests of the people involved. So, you need a agreement on a name, a person, a name, a function, a purpose, mission. What is the mission of our organization? Why do we exist? What do we want to accomplish? All of that is open right now. It's an open book. We can build whatever we want to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So again, this organization is not my organization. I'm paying people to set it up. Right? So I already have, a dozen organizations of my own. I don't need another organization, right? The reason why this particular organization is helpful is because it will eventually run the entire global network, right? So the worker cooperative basically are the workers who run everything. So instead of just hiring them as, with no power, this worker cooperative actually empowers the workers into their own structure of oversight of the worker. So it's like a self-resilient, self-functioning model. And then that it empowers the workers to build their own internal client models and ensure that all the work is getting done. And once it is functional, it will be much, much more functional than each and every single individual organization having its own internal HR systems. So this will basically be the HR systems for the entire network. So you might have a half a dozen organizations all with their own budgets, but the workers cooperative will be able to provide the necessary man and woman power to ensure that all of the organizations meet the basic functionality to get all the work done, right? But then each organization will also have its own HR budget as well, right? So think about it more like outsourcing, right? So the worker FQN Community Workers Organization will outsource all of the most essential work, like the taxes, the budgeting, the finances, the HR board, the decision making, and most importantly is Plasmo and MBE. Which oversees the staffing and the accountability structures for the businesses and the organizations and nonprofits. So once you get all of that put together, the role of the FQN Community Worker Organization is really, really important. But again, there's no need for me to just, obviously I've been working on this for years now, but there's no, it doesn't help me to do it all myself. It's like everyone needs to come together to do it as a community, because it doesn't matter if I just do it all by myself. You know, it's like it doesn't go anywhere, right? So it's kind of like waiting around, doing the recruitment, building it all up and bring it all together over the long term. But eventually it'll exist. So at the Mars session, this is only one of a dozen organizations that would be appointing boards, right? So, but the worker organization is special because it is the workers who are paid to oversee all of the other boards, right? And all of the other memberships. So if we have a dozen organizations, all of them come to the Mars session, this is the one organization that has the budget that pays all of the workers to coordinate everything for the Mars session, right? So in that context, the worker organization is the primary workers that coordinate all of the other communication systems for all of the other organizations. Yeah, so it's very, very important, and it's kind of, and it's sort of like a foundational component to all the rest of the organizations in the network. So without the workers' organization being functional, it's hard to have the other organizations be particularly functional on a global level, like if we're trying to really transform the world and achieve all of our goals. But we're not in any hurry, right? There's no hurry to have a functional workers organization. We just need to have a functional team. We can have a functional team very, very quickly by just, basic recruitment, communication, doing some training, and then eventually the workers organization will just evolve from it, And also the other thing that's going to be important is ownership structures and making sure it's clear how much people own and actually distributing tokens. I feel like once we start distributing tokens, that some of the workers might start taking it more seriously. But I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe all that people really care about is the money upfront pay, which is, for me, that's what I care about. I need to pay bills, right? So, it just depends on each worker. But, my focus is on getting the bills paid and actually getting enough money to, we should have, for the global African community workers HR budget, it needs at least $2,500 just for the HR budget for the workers to really do anything. We have $2,500 for the entire network. Right. So anyways, I'm hoping in the next couple months we'll have a lot more money. And it all is based on this 1 to 3%. Right, so if we currently have $60,000, if we could increase that by 1 to 3%, or was it? I don't know where I wrote that. Find 1 to 3%. Oh yeah, here it is. It was in my update. So let's say we had $60,000, which hopefully is already more than 60,000, but we haven't done accounting. We won't know until we do our accounting, our quarterly accounting. So quarterly accounting is required once a quarter. We have another month and a half, I think, 2 months to do it. And it determines how much money we have to be able to know how much money we can budget. So it's very, very important to do our accounting. So if we take $60,000 and we multiply it by, let's say, 2, that would be $1,200 a month. So if you take that, then you do 60,000 plus 1,200, which is equal to 61. No, 60,000. No, 61,200. All right, so if we do 4% of this, you get $2,500. If you do 4% of this, you get 61,200 times 0.04. You get, it's about the same. Yeah, so it's not going to be a lot of money, but ideally, it would keep growing until we can build some more income into that structure. But the easiest thing is just to get the work done. If we just do the work, we'll have as much money as we need, right? So, like, so we have $600 to $650 from UMCUS. Basically, this is what I would call, almost free money. Then we have an additional $2,000 to $3,000 bonus/output budget. Right? So this is like, if the work gets done, there is plenty of money. Right? So we have $2,000 to $3,000 to basically just spend on money on the work getting done. So the work gets done, we can spend as much money as we want to. Right? There's no limit to how much money we can spend as long as the work's getting done. Because if the work gets done, then we bring in more money. The only problem is paying people that don't do work. Right? So basically we have $600 to $650 to pay people for basically if no work gets done. Right? And then we have an additional $2,000, $3,000 for the bonus and output budget. And this is like a quarterly / annual budget. So we have all these funds that are budgeted for getting the work done. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's no lack of money. We have plenty of money. We just don't have money to give away for free. Which also makes it difficult to do the training, right? Like the training, when you train somebody, it takes a lot of money to train them to do the work, right? So that's where it gets difficult in recruitment, where you're recruiting all these people and then they need a lot of training before they can even do the work. And if we want to hire someone that already knows how to do the work, it's going to cost even more. It'll probably cost 3 to 5 times more. And usually that doesn't quite work out. I mean, you hire someone, they know how to do something similar, but you still end up having to train them. But usually just less training. So you can reduce some of the training costs, but it'll typically cost like 3 to 5 times more. Imagine hiring someone in the United States. If you hire someone in the United States, we're looking at $20 an hour, $20 to $30 an hour. Right? So what Albina's works with $2 to $3 per hour. You multiply this times 7x, so the client is still paying. So let's say $250. So if we're paying $250 times 7, we're looking at $15 plus per hour. Is the cost to the client. So the client would be Rico. So Rico pays $15 an hour to pay. So it costs Rico $15 per hour to pay Albina $2.50 per hour. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Because of all the business costs. We have to cover the entire cost of the business and all the other work and tax, everything. Right? So if we hired someone at $25 per hour, right, then the costs would be more like $150 per hour cost to client, because there'd be benefits and all the other money and business costs. It's just insane, and all the training. So it's much more expensive, as much as 10 times more expensive to hire U.S. workers. And that's what we're going to do. Like once we have a $300,000 budget, we will be hiring U.S. workers, right? And that could actually happen pretty soon if we can get Horizon and Canopy set up. If we have money, so then it would basically be income. So as long as we're doing the work, we can bring in more money. We just have to be getting the work done. So as long as we're getting the work done, it would be much easier to bring in this kind of money to pay much more to the workers. So I'm not too concerned about it all. I think we're going to get there. It's happening a little slower than I might hope, but I don't know. As long as everything works out with our current asset management plan, we're going to be in good shape, and then we'll bring on some more clients over time. If everything breaks down and falls apart, I mean, the money, if we get basically, either defrauded or, we lose crypto assets, right? Crypto assets are just really fragile and can just disappear. So if we lost like hundreds of thousands of dollars, we wouldn't go out of business. And I worry about losing money all the time, and I'm constantly increasing our security measures for all the money. I mean, we oversee $500,000 of assets, right? So I'm constantly overseeing improving our security measures. So our funds are maybe like 5 times more secure than they were a year ago. So we're making a lot of strides on getting the funds more secure, but we're also putting funds at risk because we are, doing more investing and trading. So every time we trade, invest, and move the money around, it's also putting it at risk. So in that context, we are risking more money than ever before. So who knows how that balances out, but the good news of risking the money is that you have a higher gain, right? So when you risk more money, you can gain more money, and that's what we're trying to do to stabilize our assets. But eventually, over time, it'll take another year or so. So tomorrow we'll hit a major benchmark. We're basically hit. It's basically minimal stability. So if everything goes well tomorrow, and over the next month or two, we'll hit minimum stability on all of our assets. We'll no longer be losing money. We'll actually be gaining. We'll be stable / gaining money at a 1 to 3% per month valuation. And then from there, we can hopefully increase that, right? At that point, over the next year or two, it's going to be a process of diversification. So right now, we're still almost entirely Bitcoin and a little bit of Ether and some other cyber currencies, right? That's not diversified. It's very, very risky because we have all of our finances and funds basically in like just a few asset classes. So we need to massively diversify the asset classes and open up where all of the funds are, so that if any one, crypto investment strategy fails and we lose the entire thing, different crypto exchanges can get hacked, for example, and you can lose all the money. So in that context, through diversification, we prevent, it's just like a security measure. It's like we prevent, the possibility of losing, all or half of our money at one time. So at least we would only lose, get it down to have no more than maybe, 25 or even 10%. Ideally diversify enough to no one asset class holds more than 10 to 20% of our funds, so that if it did go belly up and either the bank went bankrupt or there was a financial crash or something happened to the network for the crypto asset, that we would only lose 10 to 20% of our funds instead of losing 30 to 50 to 60%, if not all of our funds, right? So I don't think there's any way we could lose all our funds at this point. I think we'd be looking more like half, right? So we lost $100,000 to $300,000 of the assets of the entire network. It wouldn't bankrupt us, because we would still have money, but it would be really bad and it would take us years and years and years to recover. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And it'll take us another year or more before we're diversified enough to basically prevent that from ever happening. So that's kind of our next goal for 1 year from now, is that we're fully diversified to the point where we can't be bankrupted by a simple, collapse of a single market. Yeah. So let me note that down because that sounds like a good goal. So goal for 1 year from now is to have our assets diversified enough so that no one asset class contains more than, I don't know, 10 to 20% of our value, our funds. This ensures that if there is a market collapse, that it doesn't destroy us like it would. So I think that's so currently if we lost 100,000 plus, it would take us many years to recover. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And I mean, we've already, basically where we were before is that we lost like 200,000 when Bitcoin collapsed starting in January 2018. We lost as much as like half, if not 60 to 70% of all of the value. We lost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We were losing, even like 6 months ago, we were still losing $10,000 a month sometimes. I mean, it was brutal. So at this point, if Bitcoin collapsed today, we would not lose as much money because we're much more stabilized. We would still lose money, it just wouldn't be as bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're in much better shape. If we had everything set up like we do now, if we had this all set up 2 years ago, and we had all of our assets organized as they are now, there would be millions and millions of dollars, right? So instead of dealing with 60,000, we would have millions, right? Like that's how much money, the difference would make, and how organized the assets are now is that basically, and in 1 year from now, once we get all fully diversified, it's possible we can turn our situation upside down and have hundreds of thousands of dollars and get that $300,000. I mean, that's our goal, right? If not more. So from there, I think in a year from now, we could be in much, much better shape. But ideally, we go beyond that. Hopefully a year from now, we're back to where we're dealing with millions, right? Because 2 years ago, we were dealing with millions of dollars before the Bitcoin crashed, but all of our assets were in one single asset class, which is cryptocurrencies, with no stability, and the whole market collapsed, and we lost 70% of the value, right? And that's what did us in. That's why everything fell apart over the last year or two, and it's been so difficult to get everything back on track, is because literally all of our value was in one asset class, Bitcoin. It collapsed, and it took us with it. So now we're kind of rebuilding. It took us a year or 2 years to rebuild everything, and we're on track. We're almost getting there, and so now we're going to rebuild it back up. And this time we're going to build it up correctly with a stable model of our assets and a diverse. It's going to take another year, but eventually we'll have a diversified asset distribution model where hopefully, we won't be risking more than 10 to 20% in any one pool. Right now, we easily have like, half of our assets. Remember, I'm talking about the full $500,000, right? That full $500,000 is easily in like, 2-3 asset classes, right? So we could easily lose between 30 to 50% of the money if there a problem occurred, which is just too much, right? So it's going to take another year to get that balance to where we want it to be, but I believe we'll be able to do it. I don't think I think that there's no way that's not going to happen. And that's one of my top priorities for sure. Because we just can't afford to lose, 30% of our money, right? Like let's say we have $500,000, $50,000, $500,000. If we take a third of that, it would be like $150,000, right? So if we lost 1/3 of our funds, it would be equal to like 150,000 plus. And it could just disappear because it's cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency can just disappear at any moment. There's no guarantee. So we're always going to be dealing with cryptocurrency. So that concern of it disappearing at any moment is never going to go away. So the only way to adverse that potential risk is to diversify enough so that you're not putting, you know, a third of all of your assets in one individual institution, organization, or asset class or market. So in that context, tomorrow is when we will be fixing that to going from basically, 70, 80% down to like 30 to 50%, which is very exciting. And before we were at 100%. So if we go back 2 years, it was 100% all in one asset class, and it collapsed, and we got screwed. So 2 months ago, we were basically at 80% all in one asset class at risk. So tomorrow we will get to about 30 to 50%. Let's just say 40%.
I'll get the 60.
Say again?
If you're doing 40% and 60% is going
well, no, it's saying that no more than 40% in any one single asset class. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So basically, you could think of our assets being like we have 40% in one, we've got 20% another, maybe 10% another one, and maybe 5% and da da da, right? So this is kind of like the organization of all our assets. Whereas in a year from now, 1 year from now, we want to have no more than like 20%, 10%, 5%, maybe a couple 20%, right? 15%, right? So the idea is that we're just distributing our assets much, much more evenly. Yeah. 5%.
Okay.
Right. So right now, like that's the goal, is in a year from now, all of our assets are just distributed much, much more evenly. Right. Right now we're talking about $500,000. Right. If a year from now we have $2 million, right, which is possible. Let's say we got people who wanted to invest in us. What if we had $2 million? 20% of our total assets could be more money than 40% of what we have now, right? But it's still diversified to the point where at least it's not as much of our total. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not about the amount of money. It's about the total percentage at risk in any one particular market or asset class in relationship to how the funds are being overseen, to prevent what happened 2 years ago, right? So anyways, what we have now is already a million times better. We would be dealing with millions of dollars if we had what we have now then. But even with this, it's still not good enough, right? It still has, we're still open to major risks that are just easily avoidable with a little more work. Yes. Oh, the other thing that's essential for a functioning organization, which comes into our executive models, right, is that we need a plan for J, not being involved for whatever reason. So I basically, actively working on a set of plans and policies for my absence. So the idea would be from a year from now. So the goal would be 1 year from now, if not less than a year from now. we would, if I no longer am involved for whatever reason, whether it's just that I don't have time, I'm working on something else, or I passed away, or there was an emergency, or whatever happened. If I'm not able to be involved, there needs to be a plan for how to make sure that payroll happens, right? Payroll, distribution of funds, overseeing the trusts, overseeing the asset management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So basically, ideally, we would be able to train everybody for every detail, but in an emergency, if I just no longer am able to be involved, to have a stable functional organization, there needs to be a plan set in place to how to pass on the leadership roles, even in an emergency, right? So it can be in writing. If we don't have time to actually train people through apprentice and direct training, then it needs to at least be in writing, okay? So that's super duper 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 important, because basically if I disappeared today, I have actually set up a little bit in writing. I mean, there is a little bit, but it would be so much easier if there was like a step-by-step plan, right? Step-by-step plan of what to do to keep everything going. And it needs to be legal, right? It needs to be a legal document that is signed and notarized, especially in relationship to online and global communications and infrastructures. So basically there needs to be assurances and legal commitments to all workers that there is a legal process for everyone to continue to get paid and be active in Jay's absence. Right? So in that context, is like if I disappeared right now, everything would basically stop because no one would get paid. It would be really confusing on how to deal with all the money. But I'm dealing with like $500,000 of money, right? There needs to be a clear plan of exactly what happens with that money, where the money goes, how it's dealt with, who needs to get paid, when they need to get paid, and what's going to happen, in an emergency, right? So that everything continues. I don't think it would take more than maybe 5 hours to write that out. So it's definitely on my priority list, and I'm also adding this to the basic needs of the organization for Jay's life. So if we go back to the prime plan, in the prime plan system, number 1 is basic needs. And so for Jay's life support, this is basically all of the client work and all of the work that's in my life, which includes the 12 organizations that I run, or the dozen of organizations that I run. So this needs to include a emergency plan, et cetera, emergency plans, et cetera. Yeah, so that's super duper duper important. And we should have that by next year. But I think we were going to have that a lot sooner, probably within a few months. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, I think we're ready to check out.
No questions for now.
Okay. Do you want to check out first? How did this session go for yours? You're going to give it a score from 0 to 9, and then, what you're going to work on. Or I could go first. Should I go first?
Yeah.
You want me to go first? All right.
You go first.
I thought this session went okay. I mean, we didn't invite everybody. Not very many people showed up. Albina was in and out, so it could have gone way better. I would give it like a 3. Not enough attendance. Also, Lillian gets a strike. Add strike for Lillian. She was supposed to be here and she didn't show up. I'll be working on, obviously, the assets. I've got a ton of work to do to get ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow's a big day. So I'll probably be doing some more work tonight for that. There's a ton of paperwork I have to do. Also, I am going to be doing recruitment. I'm going to be working on the budgets. I'm going to be working on the training and the taxes. Lots and lots of taxes. Taxes. Because the taxes are due in like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Check. Wahoo, you want to check out?
Okay. I'll give us session 9. I get to learn a lot.
What was that?
I learn a lot. I'll be working on my personal stuff, that is sensor data making.
Great. Also, anything else?
No.
Okay. Also, 2 other things. One is I did make a recording for this. I want to upload it onto YouTube and make sure everyone can watch it and kind of get the update on what's going on.
Okay.
Secondly, for your communications, like it's fine to send emails and stuff, but you really should be sending emails to a group. So like I got you set up on this Skype group. What do I call it? ABS2. So I would set up an ABS2 email Google group, and that would be ideal for you to communicate on the email group so that everybody can, everyone who needs to can get and track and organize the documentation over time so that it doesn't just disappear. And that if you're following the policy, that's the way to do that. So anyways, I'll try to invite you again to the Google group for the email communications. Yeah, and then we can communicate there. Hopefully we'll have our invitation for the Mars session for next year. But also, there's more than just the Mars session. There's the series session coming up. And then also, there's some galactic sessions and other big sessions that are coming up that are important as well that you should be invited to if we get the work done and actually do session support. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Awesome. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao. 3 hours. So we did 7, 10, yeah, 3 hours. So 3 hours. Albina did like what, 1 hour, and then Jay did 3 hours. And wow.